Hey guys, it's Blue as Master 91. Today I thought I would do a deck profile for my Volcanic deck. I've been looking forward to building this since the announcement of Soul Burning Volcano. It was one of my favorite decks in the GX anime, and I'm pumped to be able to have it in real life. So let's dive in. Alright, so first thing I'm going to say is I do not have this deck 100% built in real life at the moment. I am waiting for a copy of Volcanic Emperor to arrive. That said, we run two copies of Volcanic Emperor. This is the big boss monster of the deck. It is absolutely amazing. He has 3100 attack, 2400 defense, and his effect is as followed. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from the hand or graveyard by banishing 3 Pyro monsters or 1 Blaze Accelerator card from your face-up field or your graveyard. You can special summon Volcanic Emperor once per turn. When special summoned this way, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each banished Pyro monster. Then you can set one volcanic trap directly from the deck. Each time your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. So, the whole premise of this deck and the reason why I really liked it as a kid is that the whole focus is to burn up your opponent's life points. Quite literally was Axel's catchphrase during duels is I'm going to burn up 500 of your life points. So it's a fantastic deck. I absolutely loved it as a kid. I love it now. It runs really, really well. And it's fantastic. I wish this would have been a good deck a couple formats ago when everything was being banished, because this deck would have done really well, I think. Also, something to note is I have started outer sleeving for my double sleeving instead of doing the inner sleeve. It's just so that way I don't have to worry about replacing the sleeves as often as I hit my camera's tripod. Whoa. Next, we have 3 copies of the new level 3 monster, Volcanic Trooper. Trooper is a 1000 attack, 1000 defense monster, and its effect is as followed. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add 1 volcanic card from your deck to your hand except Volcanic Trooper. You can discard 1 card, special summon 1 bomb token, Pyro level 1, fire attribute, attack 1000, defense 1000 to your opponent's side of the field. Each time one is destroyed, its controller takes 500 points of damage. You can only use each of these effects once per turn. So, with the bomb tokens, I find it really, really cool and interesting. That wasn't really a premise when the deck initially came out during the GX era, but it's a fairly fun idea. I like that they've really dove into the burning 500 points every time your opponent does something or every time something is destroyed. It was a really, really good gimmick of that era of the game, so it's nice to see its return. Next, we are playing a single copy of Volcanic Doomfire. He's in here mainly because I don't see a reason not to have him, I guess. He's a 3000 attack, 1800 defense monster. He cannot be normal summon or set. You have to send a Triblaze Accelerator card from your hand, from your field to the graveyard while this is in your hand. During your opponent's battle phase, all attack position monsters your opponent controls that can attack must attack this card. So he is a monster version of Ring of Magnetism. If this card destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the grave, you can destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible. And if you do, inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each monster sent or destroyed by this effect. So it's a really, really cool board wiping effect. It deals damage, which is the whole premise of the deck is to deal effect damage, burn damage. It's fantastic. Next, we have two Volcanic Hammerers. In a lot of builds, you only play one Hammerer and you don't play Doomfire. I really like Doomfire in the deck. That might change as I played in tournaments. But Hammerer is another really, really useful monster. He's got 2400 attack, 1500 defense. He is a level 5, so he's easy as heck to summon. Once per turn during your main phase, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the number of volcanic monsters in your graveyard times 200. This card cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. Now, that effect is absolutely fantastic because of the way I have personally constructed this deck. Well, the side deck for it, I'm running Torrential Tribute, Dark Hole, and, well, not so much for our side of the field, but Raigeki, just for generic board wipes, because it's all to power him up. So, with Torrential Tribute, it's a full board wipe for everything on the field. With Dark Hole, it's a generic board wipe for every monster on the field. It's perfect for this deck, at least side deck wise, because it allows you to get more of your pyro monsters, more of your volcanic monsters specifically into the graveyard if they're on your field. Obviously, we do have a full extra deck in this deck, so it's not as difficult as it may seem. But if you can get, 93% of the volcanic monsters in this deck into your graveyard as quickly as possible to summon him out and then use his effect, which I will say, you can have 2 copies of Volcanic Hammer and use the effect with both of them. It is not a once a turn effect. Well, it's once per turn, but it's very, very soft once per turn. Anyway, I really like that effect. It's really, really useful to help chip away. We next have 3 copies of the level 1 Volcanic Rimfire. Rimfire is a fairly interesting level 1 monster. It's got 300 attack, no defense. It is one of your Blaze Accelerator spell targets, actually, from the deck. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect of Volcanic Rimfire once per turn. Banish this card from your graveyard, and if you do, send one volcanic monster from your deck to the graveyard. Banish one Blaze Accelerator card from your face-up field or graveyard, and if you do, place one Blaze Accelerated continuous spell or trap from your hand or deck face-up on the field. So the whole point of Rimfire is so that way you can get into your copies of Blaze Accelerator or Blaze Accelerator Reloaded. And these 2 cards are useful because you can summon out Doomfire by sending this to the graveyard, which we'll get to shortly. And then Blaze Accelerator, just that spell in general, lets you make other plays. So it's extremely powerful. Personally, I've only really used the top effect where you banish the Rimfire to summon out or to send another volcanic from your deck to the grave. But it is a fantastic monster to have, and he is a definite 3 of. Next, we have 3 copies of Volcanic Rocket. Now, this is a level 4, 1900 attack, 1400 defense monster. When this card is summoned, doesn't matter if it's special summoned or normal summoned, you can add one Blaze Accelerator card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. This is important because if you have Blaze Accelerator or Blaze Accelerator Reloaded in the graveyard, you can add those back to your hand. This is your recycler for those key spells. It also allows you to obviously get into those the spell or trap by simply going into the deck, but odds are you're already going to have one in the graveyard. Next, we have 3 copies of the Volcanic Shell. Volcanic Shell is another level 1 monster. It's got 100 attack, no defense. Once per turn, you can pay 500 life points, add 1 Volcanic Shell from your deck to your hand. This card must be in the graveyard to activate and resolve this effect. So I think the reason why they added that text is because people were using it while on the field initially, and I'm guessing they wanted to try to mitigate how often that happened, would be my guess. And for the final volcanic monster, we have 3 copies of Volcanic Scatter Shot. Scatter Shot is a level 2, 500 attack, 0 defense, pyro fire monster. This card is sent to the graveyard. Inflict 500 points to your opponent. If this card is sent to the graveyard by the effect of a Blaze Accelerator card, you can send 2 Volcanic Scatter Shots from your hand or deck to the graveyard. Destroy all monsters your opponent controls. So, what this does is it allows you to not only burn your opponent for 1,500 points because you have all 3 in the grave, and that first effect does activate. So you're burning for 1,500 points, and then you're board wiping. This is one of my favorite combos. It catches your opponent off guard completely. That is it for the engine monsters, the Volcanics. Let's dive into other cards in the deck, other monsters specifically. A card I never thought I'd actually utilize in a deck. The Awakening of the Possessed, Greater Inari Fire. And with him, he is a fairly interesting monster because of his effect. He's got 2,000 attack, 200 defense, level 5, and a fire monster. His effect is as followed. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck by sending 1 face-up spellcaster monster and 1 face-up level 4 or lower fire monster you control to the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. When this card is special summoned by its effect, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the original attack of one of the monsters they control. Original attack of one monster they control. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, add 1 Spiritual Fire Art card or 1 possessed spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So, the reason why this card is in the deck is because we are running 3 copies of the new Fire Chandler monster, which is just an upgraded version of the Fire Charmer. And we do have the Fire Charmer Link monster in the deck as well for the extra deck. Now, the reason why these are in here is because of 90% of the monsters in this deck. Take out the 2 copies of Emperor and the 1 Doomfire, as well as the 2 copies of Hammerer, and all you have are level 3 and lower pyro monsters. Now, why is that important? Because you can special summon a monster from your deck because of his effect. You can special him out from the deck. Not a lot of cards allow you to do that. It's very, very difficult to do that. And because of that, your opponent's going to think you are crazy until they read the card effect. And both those effects that he has are really, really good. Now, as for the Fire Chandler, This card is always treated as a Charmer card. You can discard this card and one other fire monster. Add one fire monster from your deck to your hand with higher attack than the other discarded monster. Also, you cannot activate non-fire monster effects for the rest of this turn. When your fire monster is destroyed by battle, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only use each effect of Hita, the fire channeler, once per turn. So, she is fantastic as a searcher, and because it allows you to possibly summon out this awakening of the possessed monster. We also are running 3 copies of Ash Blossom because it's a fire attribute zombie, but it's a fire attribute monster. Plus, Ash is still Ash. So, that is it for the monsters. Let's dive right into these spells. So, first things first, we have 3 copies of the brand new Volcanic Blaze Accelerator spell card. Its effect is as followed. Activate this card by sending 1 Blaze Accelerator from your hand, deck, or face-up field to the graveyard. You can only control 1 copy of Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. Once per turn during your main phase, you can special summon 1 volcanic monster from your hand. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, send 1 level 1 pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy that target, or destroy that monster. So, what I was saying earlier is you have a lot of level 3 and lower monsters. So, while this isn't as versatile as the original Blaze Accelerator, you can still send your copies of Rimfire and your copies of Volcanic Shell to the graveyard using your copy of Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. As for the other effect, the special summoning effect, you cannot use that to summon him. He is not able to be summoned with this effect. You cannot special summon him with that effect. His effect sends us to the graveyard anyway. Or sends it away. What you can do, however, is special summon one of your 2 level 5 Volcanic Hammerer monsters. So this sets up a lot of access plays, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, what I have been doing when I've been playtesting this deck is instead of banishing a copy of this, I try to banish a copy of Blaze Accelerator, which is why I run 2, not 1. Now, for the next card in the deck, we have 3 copies of Fire Ejection. This is another new spell. Send 1 Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then, if you send a Volcanic monster to the graveyard, you can apply one of these effects. Inflict damage to your opponent equal to its level times 100. Or, special summon 1 bomb token, Pyro, Fire, level 1, attack 1,000, defense 1,000 to your opponent's side of the field. Each time one is destroyed, its controller takes 500 points of damage. So, Fire Ejection is absolutely fantastic. It is a hard once a turn, but it allows you to, if you are bricked, or if you just want to inflict a little bit more burn damage, say you just need a little bit of oomph and you win the game, this is a way to do it. It also just puts a Pyro monster in your graveyard, which is also really, really useful. Next, we have 2 copies of the original Blaze Accelerator. You can target 1 monster your opponent controls, send 1 Pyro monster with 500 attack or less from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy that target. Your monsters cannot attack the turn this effect is at you use this effect. So you can attack when you use Blaze Accelerator, which is why it's not as useful. But you can send a plethora of your monsters. You can send your Rimfire, Shell, or Scatter Shot to the graveyard, and then when you send Scatter Shot, you get to send more Scatter Shots, dealing 500 more damage and board wiping. So that not being able to attack won't matter because you could use Hammer's effect and deal damage. And then you could also go into a copy of Emperor and deal a lot of damage. So there's ways around not being able to attack with this deck, which is useful. For the last couple of spells in the deck, we have Feather Duster and Monster Reborn. These are just good ways to recover or get rid of troublesome cards your opponent might play. So that's it on these spells. Let's dive into a few traps that we are running in this deck. The first trap is Volcanic Emission. Activate one of these effects, but you can only use each of these effects once a turn. Take one volcanic monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it, ignoring summoning conditions, but return it to the hand during the end phase. So with Volcanic Emission, you are able to summon out your copies of Emperor or Doomfire because they return to the hand and the trap ignores summoning conditions. So I usually go into my copy of Doomfire with that trap. It's just really good to get it into your hand. The other effect is take one Pyro monster on the field, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. Or if you targeted a monster you control, the damage is halved. So what I usually do is I go into my copy of Doomfire. It's the quickest way to get it on the field, especially if it's your opponent's turn. So if you have a weak monster in the field, you flip this. You know a 3k monster that forces your opponent to attack into it. Then it returns to your hand. Or, my favorite combination is you have Emission set and you have Spiritual Art Fire set. You summon out Doomfire, then you flip that. When you flip open your Spiritual Fire Art Kurenai, you tribute a fire monster on the field and deal your opponent damage equal to that monster's original attack. So you're dealing 3k in attack, or in damage, which is always good because it's burning up more of your opponent's life. We also have one copy of Volcanic Inferno. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can banish one Pyro monster from your graveyard and inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent. Then, if you banished a Volcanic monster to activate this effect, you can negate that effect. During your opponent's end phase, you can target up to 2 of your Volcanic monsters that are banished or in your graveyard. Place them on the bottom of your deck in any order. You can only use each effect of Volcanic Inferno once per turn. So, this is your other recycling card. It's fairly useful. I haven't actually drawn into it that much while playtesting, but it's really, really useful. Next, we have our 2 copies of Blaze Accelerator Reloaded. This trap is why Doomfire is in the deck. This card's name becomes Tri-Blaze Accelerator while in the spell and trap card zone. During your main phase, you can send one volcanic monster, one volcanic card, from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Blaze Accelerator Reloaded once per turn. During the main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, send 1 volcanic card from your deck to the graveyard. So the 2 effects of this is fantastic because you can draw. with the first one, and then when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to send a Pyro monster to the or a Volcanic to the graveyard, and because it's being sent by a Blaze Accelerator card, you could send Scattershot, and you get its additional effect. So you send the other two, and you deal 1,500 points in total. It's absolutely ridiculous how easy it is to burn your opponent for damage. And then we've already talked about it, but the final trap in the deck is Spiritual Fire Art Kuranai, which is just a really, really good card to close out games. Whoa. That's it on the main deck. Let's dive into this extra deck. So for the extra deck, we have a copy of Relinquish Anima. Yeah, Anima. It's just a generic Link 1. Really, really simple to summon. Not much to say about that. We had Salamangreat Almirage, another Link 1. And then we have our Link Karibo. Going into other monsters we have a copy of IP Masquerena. We have the Nightmare package in Phoenix and Cerberus. I don't know why there's two of those. And we have Sunlight Wolf and Fire Hint of the Fire Charmer Ablaze. We also have a copy of Selene, Queen of the Master Magicians. A copy of Underworld Goddess, because why not? Unchained Abomination. Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, Boral Sword, and Access Code Talker. Not a lot of reason behind the extra deck. Odds are you're not going to use it very much. If you do, what I would suggest is, depending on the situation you're in, go into your Underworld Goddess by using your opponent's monsters. You can summon her out, or if that's not a strategy you'd want to use, you can always go into Boral Sword. Using Boral Sword and 3 other monsters, you can go into Access Code Talker and targeting the Boral Sword. This goes up by 4K or 2K. Nope, 4,000. So it goes up to 6,300 attack. And then obviously Avermax is just in here to be a troll. The card I thought I had in here that I don't, is Appaloosa, and that's just another negate. So, quickly diving into the side deck, I'm planning on running 2 copies of Lava Golem. I just have to move the second copy. We have our copy of Called By. I already mentioned these, Dark Hole and Red Geki. Another card that I have in here is Foolish. The 2 copies of Dark Ruler, Torrential Tribute, 2 copies of Imperm, a single Fogblade. Cards that are currently in other decks that I didn't move around are 2 copies of Evenly Matched. Well, possibly 3 copies. It all depends. Because this deck is not cemented yet. But that is it for this deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, drop a like. Also, down in the description is going to be a link to the book I published. So if you guys want to help out the channel, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe, and possibly buy the book. It's $5 for the Kindle, $14 for paperback, and then $20 for the hardcover. But that's it for this video. I will see you guys in the next one.